Pain is a funny thing. It sneaks up on you, starting as a whisper in the background. A dull ache that you ignore because life doesn't wait for you to sit down and take care of yourself. It convinces you that it's nothing, that it'll go away, that you just need to sleep it off, drink some water, maybe take an aspirin. That's what I thought when the first sharp pang tore through my stomach later that afternoon. I had been sitting at my desk, trying to focus on work, when it hit me. A deep, twisting pain in my lower abdomen, sharp enough to make me suck in a breath and grip the edge of my desk. It wasn't just a dull ache anymore. It was a warning. I leaned back in my chair, pressing a hand against my side, trying to breathe through it. Maybe it was something I ate. Maybe I just needed to walk it off. Or maybe I just needed to stop lying to myself. I picked up my phone and pulled up Lena's number. I hesitated. It was stupid, feeling hesitant to call my own wife. But that's where we were now. That's what our marriage had turned into. But I needed to hear her voice. I needed to know that she still cared enough to answer. The phone rang. Once. Twice. Then straight to voicemail. I swallowed, lowering the phone. It wasn't that she hadn't picked up. It was that she had declined the call. I exhaled sharply, tossing my phone onto the desk. Fine. She was probably at the station, preparing for her segment. Or at least, that's what I told myself. I pulled open a drawer, grabbed some painkillers, and swallowed them dry. It would pass. It had to. But it didn't. By midnight, the pain had grown into something so unbearable, I could barely think straight. I tossed and turned in bed, curling in on myself, sweating through the sheets. Every movement sent a fresh wave of agony through me, like a knife twisting deeper and deeper. I couldn't take it anymore. I sat up, swinging my legs over the side of the bed, my breath coming in short, uneven gasps. My stomach felt like it was on fire. Something was seriously wrong. I needed to go to the hospital. I needed help. I reached for my phone, my vision blurring as I scrolled through my contacts. And then, I heard laughter. Not just any laughter. Lena's laughter. It was muted, but clear, coming from down the hall. She was awake. She was on the phone. My fingers tightened around my phone. I stood up, slowly making my way down the hall, my entire body screaming in protest. Her door was slightly open. I pushed it open just a little more. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, one leg crossed over the other, her phone pressed to her ear, a soft smirk on her lips. She didn't notice me. Not at first. "No, he's sleeping," she said, voice low and amused. "He barely talks to me anymore. It's not like he'd notice." Silence. Then a chuckle. "I know. I'll be there soon." My stomach clenched, not just from the pain, but from the sheer betrayal of it. She wasn't just sneaking out. She was comfortable enough to laugh about it. My breath hitched, and that's when she saw me. She froze. For a moment, we just stared at each other. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Because what was there to say? She wasn't going to lie. I wasn't going to pretend I hadn't heard. I took a step back, my whole body trembling. Whether from anger or pain, I couldn't tell. I should have confronted her. Should have demanded the truth. But I couldn't. Because right then, I realized something far more urgent. If I didn't get to a hospital soon, I was going to die. Pain does something to a man. It strips you down, makes you raw, forces you to recognize the truth you've been avoiding. And the truth? The truth was that I was alone. Not just in that moment, but in every way that mattered. I had spent months convincing myself that Lena still cared, that the distance between us was just a phase, a rough patch, something we could fix if I just tried harder. But as I stood there in the doorway, hunched over in blinding agony, watching her adjust her makeup while she laughed with another man, I knew I had been lying to myself. She didn't love me. She didn't even see me. Another sharp, twisting pain tore through my stomach, and I gasped, gripping the wall for support. My vision blurred, my legs nearly buckling beneath me. I needed to get to a hospital. Now. "Lena," I managed, my voice barely more than a rasp. "Please, something's wrong." She finally turned, brows furrowing in mild irritation, like I had interrupted something important. "What?" I clenched my teeth, pressing a hand against my side. I think my appendix, something's wrong. "It hurts," she sighed. rubbing her temples like I was a child whining about a scraped knee. "Nathan, I'm about to leave," she said flatly. "Can't this wait?" Wait, wait. The pain was so blinding, I could barely breathe. But somehow, that one word cut deeper than anything else. I stared at her, stunned, disbelieving. You don't understand," I choked out. "I need you to take me to the hospital. I said I'm busy." And then, she laughed. Not at me, not exactly. She was already turning back to the mirror, reapplying her lipstick, shaking her head like I was some kind of inconvenience. "I'd rather celebrate my boyfriend's birthday than take you to the hospital," she said casually, almost bored. I felt my heart stop. And then, just like that, she grabbed her purse and walked right past me. The sound of her heels clicking against the floor was the last thing I heard before the door slammed shut behind her, leaving me alone. I don't know how long I stood there. Maybe seconds. Maybe minutes. The pain was worsening by the second, radiating from my stomach to my back, my legs trembling so badly I could barely stand. I needed help, but I had no one to call. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking, my breathing coming out in short, uneven gasps. I scrolled through my contacts, my vision blurring so badly I could barely read the names. No one. Not my wife. Not my family. No one I could call and say, "I think I'm dying. Please help me." A cold wave of realization washed over me. If I died tonight, no one would even notice until it was too late. No, I refused to go out like this. With the last bit of strength I had, I opened Facebook, and I started typing. My hands trembled, my fingers barely cooperating, but I kept going, because if this was it, if this was how my story ended, then I needed the world to know the truth. My wife just told me she would rather celebrate her boyfriend's birthday than take me to the hospital. I think my appendix is about to burst. If anything happens to me, you all know why. I stared at the words, the pain so intense that black spots danced at the edges of my vision. Then, I hit post. And then, I collapsed. The phone slipped from my fingers, the screen blinking up at me as my body finally gave in. The last thing I saw before the darkness swallowed me whole was the notification. Post uploaded successfully. I don't remember hitting the ground. I don't remember the moment my body gave out, when the pain finally became too much for me to fight against. But I do remember the darkness and the silence. For what felt like hours, I was floating between consciousness and nothingness, lost in a fog so deep that I couldn't tell if I was asleep, dying, or already dead. Then, a sound, a faint, distant buzzing, a vibration somewhere near me, constant and insistent. It pulled me back, dragging me out of the void. I gasped. My eyes snapped open, and the pain came rushing back all at once. It was worse than before. So sharp, so unbearable. I felt like my insides were being ripped apart. My entire body was drenched in cold sweat, my breathing shallow and rapid. It took me a second to realize that I was lying on the sidewalk, the hard pavement pressing against my back. My head pounded, my limbs felt like lead, and for a moment, I couldn't even remember how I got here. Then it hit me. Lena, the rooftop bar, the words she had thrown at me, her casual cruelty, the sound of her heels clicking away as she left me to die. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to push down the wave of rage and humiliation that threatened to consume me. But another noise pulled me back. Buzz, buzz, buzz. I forced my head to turn, my vision swimming as I looked toward the source of the sound. My phone. It had fallen beside me, the screen lighting up over and over again, vibrating so violently that it nearly slid across the pavement. I blinked, trying to focus. Hundreds of notifications, messages, comments, missed calls. I reached for the phone with shaking fingers, barely able to lift it, and when I finally managed to unlock the screen, my heart nearly stopped. My post had gone viral. It had started as a trickle, a handful of shares, a few concerned comments, but somewhere in the time I had been unconscious, it had exploded into something much bigger than I ever could have imagined. The first comment I saw was from a guy I barely even knew, someone from college I hadn't spoken to in years. "Bro, where are you? Someone call 911 now." Another comment. Does anyone know this man's location? He could be in serious danger. And another, Lena Carter is trending on Twitter, and not in a good way. I swallowed hard, scrolling through the endless sea of responses. People were furious, outraged. My post had touched something deep inside them, the kind of raw betrayal that resonated with anyone who had ever been abandoned by the person they loved most. I kept scrolling, my vision blurring, my breathing shallow. Then I saw it. A direct message from a name I hadn't expected. Marisol, a nurse I had met years ago through mutual friends. Someone I hadn't spoken to in forever. I forced my trembling fingers to open the message. Nathan, answer your damn phone. Where are you? My phone buzzed again. Incoming call, Marisol. I barely had the strength to lift the phone to my ear. I pressed answer, my voice coming out as nothing more than a weak, broken whisper. Hello? There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end, followed by a voice that was equal parts relief and frustration. Nathan? Jesus Christ. Are you okay? I wanted to laugh. Instead, I coughed, every muscle in my body screaming in protest. No, I admitted. I think I'm dying. There was movement on the other end of the line. The sound of rustling fabric, hurried footsteps. Where are you? She demanded. I blinked hard, trying to force my vision to focus. I turned my head, looking up at the massive neon sign looming over me. Brentwood Lounge, I croaked. Outside rooftop, I heard her swear under her breath. Stay there, she said firmly. I'm calling an ambulance. No insurance. Nathan, I don't give a damn about insurance right now, she snapped. If you don't get help, you're not going to make it through the night. I tried to respond, but another wave of dizziness hit me like a freight train. The phone slipped from my hand. Nathan? Her voice sounded so far away. Nathan, stay with me. But I was already slipping back into the darkness. I don't know how much time passed. Minutes? Hours? The next thing I remember is the sound of sirens. Bright red and blue lights flashing against my eyelids. Hands lifting me onto a stretcher, strapping me down, voices shouting orders. He's tachycardic. BP is dropping. He's going into shock. Get him to Baylor now. The pain was unbearable, but the relief was stronger. Someone had found me. Someone had cared enough to get me help when my own wife hadn't. As they loaded me into the ambulance, my eyes flickered open just long enough to see Lena's name lighting up my phone screen. 53 missed calls. And suddenly, I wasn't just fighting to stay alive. I was dying to know what had changed. Why, after leaving me to die, Lena was suddenly so desperate to reach me. Pain had stripped me of everything. My dignity, my ability to think straight, my sense of time. There was nothing left but raw survival. My body shutting down piece by piece, my vision flickering between consciousness and oblivion. The sirens blared in the background, but they felt distant, as if they belonged to another world. Another reality where I wasn't clinging to life by a thread. I was aware of hands pressing down on my chest, of voices shouting, of my body being lifted onto a stretcher. Everything was too bright, too loud, too much. Nathan, stay with us, buddy. I tried to open my eyes, tried to respond, but my lips wouldn't move, my body wouldn't obey. I was trapped inside myself, a prisoner of my own failing body. He's burning up, a voice snapped. He's in septic shock. We need to move now. Septic. That word cut through the haze, sharp and clear. Somewhere, in the depths of my fading mind, I knew what that meant. I wasn't just sick. I was dying. I could feel it, the weight of my own body sinking deeper into the stretcher, my fingers twitching uselessly at my sides. And yet, in the chaos, in the suffocating whirlwind of pain and noise, a single, steady voice broke through. You're not dying today, Nathan. The words weren't shouted. They weren't part of the frantic medical orders being thrown around. They were spoken with calm certainty, like an anchor pulling me back from the void. I knew that voice. Marisol. She was here. She had found me. A warmth, not the feverish heat burning through me, but something else, something steady, settled in my chest. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was just delirium. but I clung to it anyway. The ambulance doors slammed shut, and then we were moving. I could feel the vehicle speeding through the streets, every bump in the road sending fresh jolts of agony through me. BP is dropping. He's going into shock. Push fluids. We need to stabilize him. A cold rush flooded through my arm. And I realized vaguely. Another set of hands pressed against my stomach. A voice muttered something about rebound tenderness, but it barely registered. The pain was too much. Too overwhelming. I was losing the battle to stay awake. Then, hey. That voice again. I forced my eyes open, my vision blurring in and out. Marisol was leaning over me, her dark eyes locked onto mine with unwavering intensity. "You're going to be okay," she said, her voice firm, leaving no room for doubt. I swallowed, my throat aching. "Lies," I managed, my voice barely more than a rasp. Her lips twitched, but her grip on my hand tightened. "I don't lie to dying men," she shot back. "And you're not dying. Not on my watch." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But my body felt like it was shutting down, my limbs going numb, my chest growing heavier. I was slipping again, and no matter how hard I fought, I couldn't stop it. "Marisol," I whispered. Her expression softened, but her grip never loosened. "Yeah. Tell me if I die." Her jaw clenched. "Not happening." The world tilted. The edges of my vision darkened. I felt my body giving out. And then, nothing. The next time I woke up, everything was quiet. No sirens. No frantic voices. Just a slow, rhythmic beeping and the faint scent of antiseptic. I blinked. My throat was dry, my head heavy. I turned my head slightly, trying to take in my surroundings. A hospital room, dim lighting, pale blue walls, the hum of a nearby ventilator. I was alive. The realization hit me in pieces, my brain sluggishly working to put everything together. I had made it. I was still here. A deep, shaky breath rattled through my chest, my muscles sore and weak. I turned my head again. And there, slumped in the chair beside my bed, was Marisol. Arms crossed, eyes closed, her head tilted slightly to the side. She had stayed. Something in my chest tightened, but it wasn't pain this time. It was something deeper. Something that felt dangerously close to gratitude. A slight movement caught my attention. Her eyes flickered open, sharp and alert, as if she had trained herself to wake up at the slightest noise. She saw me watching her, and for a moment, she just stared. Then, a slow exhale. "You scared the hell out of me," she muttered. A dry, weak chuckle left my lips. "Sorry." She sat up straighter, rubbing a hand down her face. "You should be." There was something unreadable in her expression, something caught between relief and frustration. "You almost didn't make it," she said after a pause. "Your appendix ruptured. The infection spread fast. You went into septic shock." I swallowed hard. That explained the darkness, the feeling of my body shutting down. I should be dead, but I wasn't. "Guess I got lucky," I murmured. Marisol scoffed. "Luck had nothing to do with it." She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, staring at me like I was a puzzle she hadn't quite figured out yet. "You know what saved you?" she asked. I shook my head. "That post you made," she said, her voice quieter now. "It went viral. Fast. People were panicking, trying to figure out where you were. Someone saw you outside the bar and called 911. I blinked. She wasn't lying. I had been found because of a Facebook post. Because a group of strangers on the internet had cared more than my own wife had. Something cold settled in my chest at the thought. Marisol must have seen the shift in my expression because she sighed, rubbing her temples. "I don't know what kind of hell your marriage is," she said, "but I do know this. You deserve better than what she did to you." I didn't answer. Not because I didn't agree, but because I was still trying to process it all. I had almost died. And Lena hadn't even checked on me. She had left me to rot on the pavement while she celebrated with another man. And now? Now she was probably panicking, scrambling to do damage control, because if my post had gone viral, then the whole damn world knew what she had done. Marisol stood up, stretching. "Anyway, I'll let the nurse know you're awake. You need to rest." I nodded slowly, But as she reached the door, I spoke. Marisol. She turned back. I held her gaze, my voice hoarse but steady. Thank you. For finding me. For saving me. For caring when no one else did. She hesitated for a second, then gave me a small, tired smile. Get some rest, Nathan. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I actually felt like I could. There's something surreal about waking up in a hospital bed and realizing you shouldn't be alive. I had been prepared for it, the slow, creeping acceptance that my body had reached its breaking point, that I had been left to rot on the pavement like discarded trash, that the last thing I would ever hear was the fading echo of Lena's laughter as she walked away. But I was here, still breathing, still existing, against all odds. It should have felt like a victory. Instead, it felt like a funeral for everything I had once believed in. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the steady beep, beep, beep of the heart monitor beside me, the dull hum of the 4 pumping fluids into my veins. I was weak, drained, hollow. I had survived. But for what? I turned my head slightly, feeling the stiff pull of the hospital sheets against my skin. And that's when I saw it. My phone, sitting on the bedside table, screen lighting up over and over again, vibrating so violently it nearly slid off the edge. I stared at it, my pulse spiking. 53 missed calls. All from Lena. My chest tightened, but not from pain. Not from the lingering ache of my ruptured appendix, or the aftermath of my body barely surviving septic shock. It was something else. Something colder. Something uglier. Lena, the woman who had looked me in the eye, listened to me beg, and still walked away. The woman who had been too busy celebrating her lover's birthday to care that her husband was dying. And now she was calling? I swallowed, my throat raw. The phone buzzed again, another incoming call flashing across the screen. I let it ring, and ring, and ring, until it finally stopped. Then, a notification. One new voicemail. I should have ignored it. Should have deleted it without a second thought. But something in me, some deep, festering need to hear what excuse she had crafted, made me press play. Lena's voice filled the room, her tone frantic, breathless. But not in the way I had hoped. She didn't sound worried about me. She sounded desperate. Nathan, oh my God, where are you? I clenched my jaw. She wasn't panicking because she cared. She was panicking because my post had gone viral. I've been calling you all night, she continued, her voice cracking. I didn't mean it like that, okay? You know how I get when I'm stressed. I wasn't thinking, I scoffed, gripping the blanket beneath my fingers. She wasn't calling because she regretted what she did. She was calling because the entire world knew what she had done. Like she had actually been crying. Or maybe she had just been practicing the right level of emotion for when she inevitably had to face the cameras and spin the narrative. I'm sorry, okay? She whispered. I made a mistake. I was drinking. I was caught up in the moment. I wasn't thinking straight. I squeezed my eyes shut, letting the words wash over me. She turned toward the door, but before she could leave, I spoke again. Marisol. She paused, glancing over her shoulder. Thank you. For being here. For being the only person who gave a damn whether I lived or died. She nodded once. Then, without another word, she left. And I sat there, listening to the quiet hum of my heartbeat on the monitor, finally realizing something. Lena may have left me to die, but I had never felt more alive. The hospital room was silent, except for the rhythmic beep, beep, beep of the heart monitor. But outside this sterile space, the world was on fire. I could feel it in the air, in the way the hospital staff gave me knowing looks, in the way the nurses whispered to each other when they passed my room. I wasn't just a patient recovering from surgery anymore. I was a headline. I knew it before I even checked my phone. I could sense it in my bones. And yet, when I finally picked up my phone, when I scrolled through the avalanche of notifications, messages, and missed calls, it still felt like a punch to the gut. My post, the one desperate plea for help I had sent into the void, had turned into something unstoppable, viral. It wasn't just a few hundred shares anymore. It wasn't just concerned friends and acquaintances. It was millions of people, all over the world, dissecting my story, the betrayal, the neglect, the cold, casual cruelty of my wife, choosing a man's birthday party over my life. I saw my name plastered across news sites, across Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, even YouTube. I wasn't just some guy from Dallas anymore. I was the man whose wife left him to die. Headlines screamed at me from the screen. She laughed and walked away. The story that has the internet furious. Dallas anchorwoman faces backlash after husband's viral post. How social media saved a man's life and ended his wife's career. I scrolled further, my stomach tightening as I saw the comments. How do you look someone in the eye while they're begging for help and just leave? This is psychopathy. Straight up inhuman. Lena Carter is done. How is she even showing her face in public? If he had died, she wouldn't have even cared. This is chilling. I exhaled sharply, my grip tightening around the phone. It was surreal, overwhelming, but at the same time, I felt nothing. Because at the end of the day, none of these people had been there. None of them had felt the pain tearing through me as I collapsed on the pavement. None of them had heard the sound of Lena's heels clicking away as she walked out the door, leaving me gasping for air, fighting for my life. They were angry, but they didn't understand. Not really. I let out a slow breath, scrolling further. And then I saw it. A statement from Lena. I almost didn't open it. Almost didn't care what she had to say. But my thumb hovered over the screen, and before I could talk myself out of it, I tapped the post. It was a carefully crafted apology. The kind written by PR teams, not by wives who actually felt remorse. I deeply regret the misunderstanding that has caused pain to my husband, Nathan. Emotions were high that evening, and I said things that I did not mean. I never intended to hurt him, and I am devastated that my actions have been misinterpreted in such a way. I love my husband, and I hope we can heal from this situation together. I felt my jaw tighten. Misunderstanding. Misinterpreted. She still wasn't taking responsibility. She wasn't sorry she had left me to die. She was sorry she got caught. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. That was it, then. Her perfect little world was crumbling, and she was desperate to patch it back together. But it was too late. The comments on her post were brutal. Girl, please. You let this man suffer on the pavement while you drank champagne with your side piece. STFU. Misinterpreted. Sis, you literally told him, I'd rather celebrate my boyfriend than take you to the hospital. We all heard it. You're finished. You don't love your husband. You love your image. Hope it was worth it. Your career is over. Get comfortable with that. I closed the post, tossing my phone onto the bedside table. I didn't need to see more. Lena's empire was collapsing. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I finally felt like I had one. Not just because the world saw her for what she was, but because for the first time in a long time, I didn't care what happened to her anymore. Lena Carter built her life on a perfect illusion, a career polished to shine under the bright lights of the camera, a curated persona that made her seem untouchable, a name that carried weight in Dallas high society. And now? Now it was all falling apart. I sat in my hospital bed, staring at the news article flashing across my phone screen. DNBC officially suspends Lena Carter amid backlash over husband's viral post. My eyes skimmed the article, my chest tightening. Not with regret, not with guilt, but with the surreal realization that this was really happening. She was being removed from the air indefinitely. The network statement was cold and personal. In light of recent events, DNBC has made the decision to place Lena Carter on an extended leave while we review the circumstances surrounding the situation. We take our employees' reputations and conduct seriously, and we remain committed to upholding the integrity of our organization. They weren't outright firing her. Not yet. But this was the first step, and I knew how this industry worked. Suspension meant she was being phased out. Lena's reputation had poisoned the brand, and sponsors were already pulling out of ad deals connected to her segments. It was only a matter of time. I clicked back to Twitter, scrolling through the storm of backlash. Good. Now fire her. DNBC is still trying to save face. Y'all know she's not coming back after this. How does it feel to be canceled, Lena? Hope it was worth it. It was brutal, but I felt nothing. She had made her choices. And now she was paying for them. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. I looked up just as Marisol stepped into the room, a takeout coffee cup in her hand. "You look like you need this," she said, walking over and setting it on the tray beside me. I smirked. What gave it away? She shrugged, leaning against the wall. "You've got that look." "What look?" "The look of someone who just realized karma is real." I exhaled, rubbing a hand down my face. "Yeah," I muttered. "Something like that." She nodded toward my phone. "She's still trying to call you?" I glanced at the screen. 7 more missed calls from Lena. "She's desperate," I said, my voice flat. "She's watching everything she built go up in flames." Marisol's expression was unreadable. "And how do you feel about that?" I thought about it for a second. How was I supposed to feel? Lena had left me to die. She had mocked me, laughed in my face, dismissed me like I was an inconvenience rather than her husband. And now the world was turning against her. I should have felt something. Anger, satisfaction, closure. But all I felt was empty. Like I had already moved past it before the world even caught up. I sighed, shifting against the pillows. I don't know. I guess I thought I'd feel vindicated. But I shook my head. I just don't care anymore. Marisol studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "That's good," she said. "That means you're finally letting go." I let out a dry laugh. "Letting go of what?" "I haven't even decided what I'm gonna do about her yet." She raised an eyebrow. "Do you really need to do anything?" I frowned. "She already lost," she continued, nodding toward my phone. "You don't need revenge. She did that to herself." I stared at her, taking in the weight of her words. And for the first time, I realized she was right. I had already won. I didn't need to confront Lena. I didn't need to make her suffer. She was already drowning in the consequences of her own actions. And me? I was finally free. I picked up my phone and, without hesitation, I blocked her number. I wasn't wasting another second on a woman who had already proven who she was. Marisol watched me do it, then smirked. "Took you long enough." I chuckled, shaking my head. "Yeah." And as I set my phone down, taking a slow sip of the coffee she had brought me, I realized something. For the first time in years, I was at peace. Hospitals have a strange way of making you think. Maybe it's the silence. Maybe it's the smell. Antiseptic, cold, unnatural. Maybe it's just the way time moves differently when you're lying in a bed, hooked up to machines that beep every few seconds, reminding you that you're still alive, still breathing, still here. I should have been dead. If I had passed out somewhere no one could find me, if I hadn't made that one last post, if Marisol hadn't been stubborn enough to track me down, I wouldn't be lying in this bed right now, staring at the ceiling, feeling my body slowly recover from the hell it had been through. And Lena? She wouldn't have noticed until it was too late. The thought sat heavy in my chest as I scrolled through my phone, catching up on everything I had missed. Lena's career was officially over. DNBC had quietly removed her bio from their website. Her segments had been pulled, and word was spreading that her contract had been mutually terminated. Sponsors were cutting ties, social media was unrelenting, and now that the internet had turned against her, there was no fixing it. She was done. And yet, she still wouldn't stop calling. Still wouldn't stop trying to reach me. Even though I had already blocked her number, she had resorted to calling from other phones, sending emails, even trying to message me through social media. The latest email sat unopened in my inbox, the subject line reading, "Please, just talk to me." I should have ignored it. I should have deleted it and moved on with my life. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. I tapped the email. The message was long, too long. But my eyes skimmed over it quickly, picking up on all the parts that mattered. She was sorry. She was devastated. She hadn't meant to hurt me. She had been drinking that night. She had been stressed. She had been caught up in the moment and didn't think her words would have the impact they did. It was all excuses. Not once did she own up to what she had done. Not once did she say, "I should have helped you." Not once did she admit that she had looked me in the eyes, heard me begging for my life, and still made the choice to walk away. I exhaled slowly, closing the email, feeling absolutely nothing. She wasn't apologizing to me. She was apologizing to the version of me who might still have cared. And that man? He didn't exist anymore. A knock at the door made me look up. For a brief, horrifying second, I thought it was her. But it wasn't. It was Marisol. She stepped into the room, giving me a knowing look as she gestured to my phone. She's still at it? I let out a dry chuckle. Won't stop. She shook her head, walking over to stand beside my bed. You gonna respond? No. Her lips curved slightly, approval flashing across her face. Good, she said simply. I sighed, running a hand down my face. I don't even feel angry anymore. I just feel done. Marisol studied me for a long moment, then nodded. That's how you know it's over. I let out a breath I hadn't even realized I'd been holding. It was over. I had survived her. And now? Now, it was time to start living for myself. For the first time in years, I wasn't holding on to something that was already gone. And it felt damn good. The thing about survival is that it forces you to redefine yourself. I wasn't the same man who had begged his wife for help, only to be laughed at and abandoned. I wasn't the same man who had tried to hold on to a marriage that had already been dead for years. That man was gone. And in his place? A man who had been reborn through fire and pain. I sat on the edge of the hospital bed, my body still sore, my muscles weak, but for the first time in a long time, I felt strong. Strong in a way that had nothing to do with physical health. Strong in a way that came from knowing I had made it through the worst and come out on the other side. Marisol walked in, a knowing smirk on her face as she tossed a set of folded clothes onto the bed beside me. Discharge papers are ready, she said, crossing her arms. You're free to go. I exhaled slowly, running a hand through my hair. Free. It was funny. I had been stuck in a hospital room for days, but I had never felt as trapped as I had when I was married to Lena. Now, for the first time in years, I had no chains holding me down. No obligation to beg for scraps of affection from someone who never deserved me. No need to fight for a love that never existed. Just freedom. Real, unshakable freedom. I looked at Marisol. You busy later? She raised an eyebrow. Why? I shrugged. I owe you dinner. Her smirk widened. Damn right you do. I chuckled, shaking my head as I reached for my phone. The first thing I did was delete Lena's email. The second thing I did was block her on every single platform. And the third thing? I made one last post. Survived betrayal. Survived being left to die. Survived the woman who never truly loved me. And now? I'm finally free. Thanks to everyone who showed me what real support looks like. On to better things. I put the phone down, feeling lighter than I had in years. Lena was my past. But my future? It was just beginning. And for the first time in my life, it belonged to me.